Hey everyone, welcome to our February webinar for Women Speak. Glad to have you all here. So we have a very exciting webinar here today regarding why men should be feminists. We have an awesome panel here lined up for y'all, all affiliated with Women Speak in some way. And we have me and Kristen holding it down for the executive team while our two other members are offline today. I guess to really start off this conversation, we realize that this is a very controversial subject about men and feminism, why men should be feminists. We've had that controversial title for a reason. So we're here to really create a very open conversation about, why we think men should be feminists and really clarify from our positions what we believe a feminist is. So to start that off, we want to introduce our lovely panelists as well as ourselves. So I guess we can start. Each of our panelists could tell the viewers who they are, where they go to school, and their affiliation with Women Speak. And then me and Kristen can go last. So we could start with Tori, then Gemma, then Mr. Kays, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I'm Tori, and I'm a junior at St. John's University in Queens, New York City. And my affiliation to Women Speak, I am not officially affiliated, but these are all my friends from high school. I'm just a huge supporter, and I love the topic of women and women empowerment and all that good stuff. So I just tune into everything and like everything on Facebook because I'm creepy and also a supporter. Okay.
Hello, my name is Gemma. I go to UC Irvine. I'm a junior. I'm an international studies major. Like Tori said, I am really good friends with all the Women Speak exec girls, and I myself am a mentor in Women Speak. I got super interested in feminism, graduating from St. Lucy's. I love my girls, and coming into college, I was really opened my eyes to the issues that women women face, and got really interested and involved in it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Kays. For those of you that don't know me, the executive board will call me Mr. Kays, just because I've taught most of them. I'm not in college, despite my youngest looks. I teach at St. Lucy's, and I also teach at St. Mary's College in Los Angeles, both all-girls places that service all girls. I'm here because I'm on the advisory board. I like to be very involved, and it's an issue that is meaningful for me, having spent 10 years teaching in a all-girls environment.
Cool. So I'm Bernie, Executive Director of Women Speak, and Kristen.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Women Speak. And yeah.
Cool. So I guess we'll get right down to business. In terms of, men, feminism, huge, big buzzwords. Emma Watson created this huge speech at the UN, and she has this huge campaign called He for She. And then John Legend said he was a feminist. So there are all of these really interesting movements regarding men and feminism. So I think I really want to hear from the panelists from the very basic, core concept. What to you is a feminist? Anyone can go and just unmute themselves. Gemma, you have to unmute yourself.
I thought I did. Sorry. I am technologically behind by years. Anyways, I think that that feminism is very straightforward, and that it is the total and complete equality of the genders on social, economic, political levels. There's no any kind of discrimination, nothing. Everything's on equal playing levels, everything. So that's it's very straightforward from my eyes.
I feel the same way Jenna does as far as the basic kind of ground, like fundamentals of what feminism is. I think it's just like, yeah, like she said, like equal like playing levels across like all fields, all genders, whatever that means, gender. Yeah, so I agree. It kind of took the words out of my mouth, so yeah.
Feminism to me is about human dignity. It's a place where people can find value and a place where we can create appropriate value. And it's not just for women. Feminism needs to be for everybody because it is a issue for all genders. I think oftentimes when we use the word gender, people think of that as a woman's issue, when gender can mean anything. We have so many different gender classifications these days that are all important in ways that people label themselves, or in fact be labeled, that when you use the word gender, a lot of people just turn off. They click on, gender, that's a women's issue. And it's not a women's issue. It's a fundamental human issue, that to be a feminist is to be a humanist, is to believe in all people and their rights for not just equality, but equity within society.
Cool. Kristen, do you have anything to say on the subject?
Sorry. I think all of them kind of hit it on the head. I agree with all of that.
Yeah, I have to expand on like what Brian said in terms of, it really being a human thing. And I think, when the term feminist was coined, it really was, for the women's movement. But something that I think is really interesting is that whole women's movement, was not merely for women. It's merely for just the recognition that a lot of the constructions of what gender is socially constructed, and the fact that we have the power to change what our conceptions are, and that none of this gender stuff is ever, biologically proven in terms of like men should be on top, women should be, on a bottom rank. None of that is at a biological level, but more so socially constructed, and the fact that they are socially constructed is very interesting because we have the power to change that. So, next question. Kristen, go ahead.
Okay, so why do you guys think it's so controversial to be a feminist?
I mean, I can say, I just think that, when people hear the word feminism, I think they right away hear, I hate guys, or like I'm anti-man, or I'm not, like, people think if she's a feminist, she doesn't like guys, or that kind of stuff. And I think that obviously it's completely not true, but it's just such a weird, kind of like a taboo these days. It seems like that feminisms are radical, or feminists are radical, or they speak in extreme terms, or they just want these, unattainable expectations from society, when really it's a very simple thing, but people see it as this anti-dude, like, I don't like guys, I want them to do worse than women, or I want them to not succeed in society, but that's not true at all. So that's what I think. I think people like right away go to the negative connotation of what feminism is.
Yeah, I am gonna piggyback on what Gemma said again, because feminism does have a very negative connotation. Just like because like she said, like it's just like, oh, like I hate guys, or like guys are so evil, whatever, that whole kind of thing. And it obviously is not true. And I think in this day and age, it's like, it's 2015, like it should have, I don't know why people think that it's so like controversial still in that we're like the thinking is radical, like feminist like ideas are radical, because like I don't know, you would think that like that's just like such a kind of ancient thinking, and people should have like kind of evolved and see like we live in a different time, and women have come such a long way, and like we all have come such a long way. So I don't know why it's still so controversial, but baby steps, I suppose.
One of the reasons why it's controversial is because it challenges the dominant systems of power. And it is those dominant systems that have made it controversial, that has made it a men-hating issue. Because if men are the ones that are in power, and feminism is going to challenge that power and ask men to think about their own dominance, then they have to in some way attempt to maintain that power. So it's spun as being, oh, well, you just hate men. Because power and privilege oftentimes go unexamined. And when you talk about gender and sexual violence and all these other issues, you have to remember the person who is rendered invisible in all of these issues is actually the person who is the center of the issue. If we're talking sexual violence, we spend all the time on the victim and all the issues. And men oftentimes don't end up as part of the equation. But we have to understand that they are central to the problem of feminism and gender issues, and they've been quiet. And I think that's been a problem. And we need to bring them to the conversation, because all of these issues are essentially around how men behave, how men act. And if so many men weren't silent on the issue, then maybe this wouldn't be as controversial as it really is, and in fact isn't very controversial.
Can I add? I wanted to add to my. I actually this morning I looked up anti-feminist posters, propaganda from the 50s. So like not at the beginning of feminism, but just kind of like those early anti-feminist propaganda, and a lot of them were saying that if a woman is feminist, first of all, she's never gonna find a husband, so she's gonna spend the rest of her life alone. Like those were on the posters. Like she's gonna go like her whole life never getting married, and at the end of it, she's gonna have nobody. That was like all this like illustrations. And then there was also this thing about if she's a mother and a feminist, then she's not gonna look after her child. And these are from the 50s, where like the household was everything in society. So from that day, and then it's kind of evolved, taken more modern vocabulary, but those ideas are still kind of in the back of people's minds, that there's this idea of if a woman is going to be a feminist, she's going to take on a more selfish role in society and in her household, and then neglect other duties of being a woman. You know what I mean? Like they think that because she's a feminist, that's just part of the negative connotations that come along with the term of feminism. But it's really funny that I found that this morning, because it's been going on for so long, these anti-feminist propaganda that have these really misconstrued ideas of what a feminist, what feminism qualities are in a woman.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with like all of our panelists. I think when a lot of people hear feminist, I've heard so many offensive remarks, such as calling, women who identify themselves as feminists feminazis, and they always, refer to like the whole like, oh, women who, like burn their bras in the streets. Well, first of all, in the 1960s, during the second wave of feminism, there was not one bra burned in the street. So that kind of stereotype is totally not true. And, again, agreeing with all of our panelists, why it's so controversial to be a feminist is really, it's not about man-hating. It's about having everyone really just realize where they are on this life in terms of how privileged they are. What type of power do they have simply by being a man, by being a woman, by being of a certain race or a certain socioeconomic status? A lot of these things that we are given in life is solely upon chance, and the fact that we are living out a lot of these inequalities in our life is, a reason to ask why. Why are we born at a better position than another person? Why is another person at more of an advantage than I am in another situation? And so these types of, questions should really ask us, why is this happening? Should this be happening? And what can we do to really combat it? So, next question is, what is your view on men and feminism? And I think you guys were kind of talking about this, but how can we ask all of our viewers to really picture how men can be supporters of feminism and not just seen as the victims of feminism?
Men and feminism. I'm gonna add this right now. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the whole menist movement, whatever that is, on Twitter, that I think is a joke. I hope it is, oh God. But it makes me kind of uncomfortable how many guys actually retweet and tag along and emoji, I agree, which is insane. But men and feminism is really important because it's not, feminist, it's not just about women, it's not just about gender. I mean, it is kind of, but what we're going through, it affects men too, husbands and brothers. You don't want to see your sister, your wife, or your mom, or whoever struggle with privilege issues. And I think that men should very, very much be involved.
Yeah, I think definitely, to add on to that, feminism is connected to you whether you realize it or not. Like Tori said, it's an issue for your sister or your siblings or cousins, family members. It's a lot closer than you think, and a lot of people are dealing with issues that I feel like men don't really, or don't always realize that these are issues for the women that are around them. So our next question is how.
Can I comment on the other one?
Oh yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Words. And if any of the other panelists as well. But in terms of men and feminism, what I think is mind-blowing is that our concepts of masculinity are dependent on a lot of our concepts of femininity. So for a lot of guys out there, how many times have you been told you can't show your feelings, that's too girly, or why are you talking about that, or why are you crying, that's not a guy thing. Those types of things that we say to each other in terms of oh, that's such a guy thing, oh, that's such a girl thing, all of that relates to feminism. All of that relates to why we think that men should act a certain way and women should act a certain way. And the fact that a lot of the ways we think about men really depend on how we think about women is why we should change how we think about women, because in that sense we can actually change how we also think about men. We can actually believe that it's not a guy thing to not share your feelings. As a guy, as a person, you should be able to express yourself, be emotional, be whoever you want to be, and not have your gender or any cultural expectation limit you from that. So that's why I think, that's how men and feminism really intersect, because your expectations as a guy is in society is really dependent on how society looks at you.
Yeah, I totally agree with everyone. I think that the biggest role one day a guy could play is to be a dad. And when I think about my dad, since I was young, has always told me You know, you can do whatever you want, and you are capable of so much, and you have very much every chance a guy has and every opportunity a guy has. I mean, along with my mom, but I'm just saying that a lot of girls' first interactions with men are with their dads, and so if you are a guy and you're eventually going to become a father, you might as well think, you know, I'm going to maybe take on some of these feminist views, because what if I have a daughter one day and I need to teach her that she's capable of what these guys are capable of at school, in the job market, anything, that they are on the same level as them and they are as smart and as powerful and as strong, and that they totally can do what a guy can do. And not just if you have a daughter, you know, if you have a son, they have the chance to really implement in their kids that everyone is equal, that everyone should be looked at in the same way, you know what I mean? Not just because you have a sister or because you have a daughter or because you have a cousin or aunt or niece. It's because everyone is a human regardless, you know what I mean? So I think that that's such a big role that guys can play in feminism, because they have the power to influence the people around them and the next generations to come.
I want to touch on that for a minute. Since, you know, men owe it first to their sons. They owe it to their sons to have the conversations about human dignity and about people and how to treat them, because we see it's a self-propagating system. The man who beats his wife in front of his kid, what behavior are we socializing our kids to see? The man who makes the comments about either race or gender, sexual orientation in front of his children. I mean, what do they teach? Or the woman who makes the same comments. I mean, these are all things that are socialized. They're not biological. And in reference to men have the power, unfortunately, that's right. And what we could say is men right now in this time can say things that women sometimes can't. I mean, it's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but better yet, men can say things that need to be heard that women can't often be heard saying right now. And we owe it to human dignity to not remain silent. It's that silence that is consent. And since it's February, to quote Dr. King, in the end, what will hurt us the most is not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And that silence on men's behalf is consent, that this is the way it should be. And that's wrong. And so we do owe it to our sons, and we owe it to our daughters that we understand that caring is not enough. Okay? Men owe it to themselves and their children to make a change.
Brian, I'm really curious in terms of, I'm sure that, you know, when you were growing up, you probably heard a lot of like stereotypes as to what a guy and a man and a woman should, you know, be. You know, was there a certain turning point to you that made it clear that you should really own that, own being a feminist, or was it kind of like a thing you always knew and kind of always owned, or was there a certain point that really made that clear to you?
You know, I'd like to say it was a revolution in my thinking, but that's not really true. It was probably more of an evolution of thought that culminated in my own experiences. You know, my father was around until I was maybe a sophomore, and then he went to prison. And so it was basically my mother, myself, and my older brother, and he was kind of not around. So it was really just me and my mother, and I saw her struggles, and I saw after 25 years of never having a job that she had to go get a job and trying to get into the workplace and trying to find a way to feed her particular family. And I think that was the first, I don't want to say chink in the manly armor of how society had raised me to see being a man. But I think that's a good starting point. And I went through college, and I ended up in the right situations that gave me the right perspective. But I have to say, the biggest turning point was coming to teach at St. Lucy's. It was an opportunity that I hadn't had. Just getting into teaching, I took the job not really knowing what I was getting into. But within my first year and a half, I saw the need. I saw what was in front of me, and eventually I wrote my master's on gender and how women are socialized and specific ways to teach in those respects. And it was something that has been built over time. And I, maybe somewhere deep down inside, I've always been willing to do something for the group that is not in power, and being in a position of privilege. I'm a white male in America. I am in the privileged position, and in my experiences, it is those privileged positions that need to speak up the most, that needs to challenge themselves, needs to put things forward. And that's where true leadership comes. Because sometimes you hear somebody make a comment, a celebrity or a coach, and they're like, wow, they need to go to sensitivity training. I'd argue against that. They don't need to go to sensitivity training. What they need is leadership training. They need to be taught how to lead and how to be in a position of power and how to use that to help people. I think that's pretty important.
No, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think also maybe for all of us, another question is, did being in an all-girls environment, either during that time or after that time, really help us, really embrace these issues right now? Or, for a lot of our peers, a lot of people watching, they, go to co-ed public schools, co-ed colleges and universities, never had that single-sex environment. And how do you recognize that? How do you create that awareness and that empowerment, even if you're not insulated in that space?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Burns, this is something we've talked about a few times, that we didn't really realize how St. Lucy's affected us until we kind of left, which is kind of unfortunate. But I guess, when you go out and experience things, me personally, I'm in a male-dominated field, which is architecture. So I think, being in a STEM career, if you will, and being in that male-dominated field that has its own setbacks that I think I would not have been as prepared for if I didn't go to St. Lucy's, because I think they really gave you that foundation. Like, while you were there, I probably would have never admitted this while I was there, but now that I'm gone and removed, it's okay. That it definitely helped with my confidence and courage. People are like, you don't know the answer. I'm like, wait, hold up. Yes, I do. Like, I think St. Lucy's gave us that environment to not be afraid of what anyone has to say. Like, people are like, why don't you listen? I'm just like, because I have something to say. I'm not one to, I'm not doing it to be rude or disrespectful, but, if someone's going to shut me down, then that's a problem. So definitely knowing when to use my voice and how to use it effectively, I think I learned that from St. Lucy's. And that's just kind of how that worked out for me.
Yeah, I 1,000,000% think that because of St. Lucy's, I've come to value the things that I do. I think that there's a solidarity that comes with, a female solidarity that comes with going to an all-girls school, but you don't necessarily need to find that and to go to an all-girls school. I think I go to a co-ed university, and I found that the best way to kind of find that among my female peers, and not just the female ones, the guys too, is that there's no need to kind of criticize one another based on thinking, on looks, on a lot of things, on beliefs, on religion, that kind of stuff. There's no need to go on a girl's Instagram and call her XYZ. There's no need to criticize what that guy's wearing, what this person is saying. At St. Lucy's, we were fortunate enough that we were in this very secure, safe environment. At least for me, I did not feel the need to impress, feel the need to look a certain way, or even be worried about being criticized for the way I looked, how I did my makeup, how I did my hair, or if I did at all, because I never did that to someone else. And then that I really brought that into college, thinking there's no need for me to look at other people and think that way. I think that's a very basic way of explaining how to, to bring that solidarity, but I think that's really an initial step. If you hear someone else saying, yo, that girl looks like this, or she shouldn't have that, or, like, look what she's wearing, you got to speak up and say, I don't know her, and you shouldn't, and I am telling you right now that that's not cool to say something like that to someone else or about someone else, and have that level of respect for one another, and that's how you create this solid form of unity among men and women, is that realizing that there's other things to judge a person on. And I found that not until after I left St. Lucy's, obviously, did I realize all of these things, but after I left, I was like, it gave me this foundation for confidence, for speaking my mind, like Kristen said, for being okay with myself and being okay with everything, what I looked like, how I thought, how everything I believe in is okay, because I have this confidence and I have this foundation that I was fortunate enough to have in high school.
I agree with what Jenna said. Gemma, I keep calling you Jenna, I'm sorry. Yeah, like it took me, while I was at St. Lucy's, I definitely wasn't aware. I was aware of like where I am and like the privilege I have of going there, but like I never really like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm at school with all girls all day. Well, like I never like, it never really affected me. And like coming out of St. Lucy's, it took me like a year or so, like from like freshman year, like being in a co-ed environment, to really realize and understand, like, again, like Gemma said, like the solidarity. Like I cultivated like a really close group of girls who we all thought the same and had the same ideas, and that was really important. And I thought that, like, coming from St. Lucy's and being in that environment, like that, like definitely kind of like, it was like a nice little segue into like my adult life and in college and being around guys too. And like, I mean, of course, like I didn't just have like a group of girlfriends, but guy friends too, who like definitely had the same ideas I did. And I thought that was really interesting, because in high school, like I didn't. So I don't know. That was like my first experience with that. But yeah, St. Lucy's was a great experience.
Well, not having been a student there, but slightly biased on the fact that I do in fact teach there. Yeah, St. Lucy's is a place that I like to believe can help a person find a voice. I think that's really the job of education. I know the people on this panel who've had me as a teacher know that the one thing I always said was I didn't care what grade you got. Whether or not you remembered, the acceleration of gravity will be irrelevant in your life. Whether or not you could be given that information and come up with some type of creative way to use it will always be important. And creativity requires voice. You can't be creative unless you have a voice to bring that forward. And so I've always pushed for people finding their voice. And I told somebody today, if you've left my class with your feet solidly on the ground, then I failed you. Education is to bring forth new ideas and to challenge the way you think, and maybe it happens instantaneously, and maybe it happens 5 years down the road. But I'm always going to try to challenge my students to think differently and even think about the way they think. That's always going to be important.
Thank you, guys. So I would like to invite anyone who's watching to submit questions. But while we are, waiting for questions to come up, I want to bring up, Beyonce. I want to bring up Emma Watson. I want to bring up all these pop stars that all of a sudden were like, I'm a feminist. And now everyone is like, yo, I'm a feminist too. And it's really interesting because, is feminism beginning to be a very sexy topic, and is it bad for it to be a sexy topic? Um, is it good on one hand that a lot of people are, now identifying with it, or is it being diluted by a lot of just like, superficial talk? Really interested to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic. I think, like Brian said, oh, that was weird, that you should use your position of power to really educate people because, like, Beyonce was standing up on that stage with a huge feminism. Like, that was something that a lot of people aren't going to forget. They're going to remember forever. And, maybe that was the defining moment. Maybe that was just a little push that they needed. So I think, you definitely got to use your platform as, whatever that may be, as Emma Watson, her UN speech, or I think, it's awesome that these celebrities and, people are really taking the platform that they have and using that to expand on, their own beliefs and issues, and I just think it's awesome.
I agree that these celebrities that are in a position of power should use that position and like speak out and kind of make this topic known, but not make it so like trendy. I think that's like something that is like debated, and people think it's like just feminism like trendy, or like is Beyonce a feminist, like, and she's doing all these things or whatever. But I also think it's important that like when these celebrities, for example, I'm gonna kind of say this, like Patricia Arquette on Sunday at the Oscars, she made a really strong statement in her acceptance speech, and everyone was like, yes, go girl, say it loud, say it proud. Everyone was really hyped for it, and then it came out like the other day, like her comments backstage that she made were like controversial and really just completely, they were very just, it didn't fully like grasp, and like it wasn't inclusive to like the whole feminist movement. And like I think that is something that when a celebrity or whoever, when you are gonna like speak out, like actually at least be inclusive, at least like she was like, what did she say? She said like if it's feminist, it's like our time now, and people of color and gay, right, and like the LGBT community needs to support us. And I'm like, so we're just excluded? Like you said, people of color, is that like a woman of color? Does that include me? Like it's like that whole thing. So I don't know, I just think it's interesting to see kind of like that dynamic. Bernie, I know you want to say something.
Yeah, I just want to really clarify on that Patricia Arquette speech. So I'll just read like the very last line, and it was basically about like what women in feminism, and then her last line is, "It's time for all the women in America and all the men that love women and all the gay people and all the people of color that we've all fought for to fight for us now." And yeah, so that was the statement. And that statement basically implies that like a lot of the LGBTQ and women of color already have their rights, and in no way do we have equality on those fronts. And what happens to the individuals who identify as LGBTQ and women of color and want to be feminists? Like, where does that intersectionality, that's a big word, like where does that intersection of identities happen? So feminism isn't just about woman, it's about yourself as a woman of color, me as an Asian American woman, as basically anyone. Basically all of your identities are intersecting in this concept of feminism, and it's never exclusive with that. But anyway, on to the topic of like pop feminism more so. Keep going.
I think it's really cool, like the Emma Watson thing. Like I think that was really cool because she took a little bit step forward than what Beyonce and John Legend did. They took the stage, but she took the UN mic. You know what I mean? I thought that was really awesome, and I did read her thing and I watched her speech a couple of times, and I think that the most important thing to recognize is that, yes, it's super cool that these, pop artists or these celebrities are taking on, this feminism crusade, but to also realize, first of all, I think feminism is really sexy and equality is sexy, but also it's not a trend, it's not a fad, and it's here to stay. It's not going to fade out with the next trend. I think that's what people really need to realize, is that this is not the peak of this wave of feminism. In my eyes, I don't think that this is the ultimate. I don't think that this is the largest part, this is the loudest part of the conversation. I think this is the beginning, and this is when the ball gets rolling, and that's when I think Beyonce, John Legend, Emma Watson, even Patricia Arquette, like, they're trying to get the conversation started in their own ways, and then you, as a fan, as the audience, as a man or a woman, to form your own opinions and take what they're saying and kind of be like, okay, I hear them, let me have a conversation about this with my husband, with my kids. Oh, did you guys hear about that? Let's have a conversation about it. What do you guys think? Help me understand what I don't understand. You know what I mean? I don't think that they are the mouthpiece of it. I don't think that they are the face of it, but I definitely think that they have the power and the privilege to put it out there and get that conversation started and that ball rolling. I definitely think, but obviously they got to pick and choose their words very wisely, because the people that are listening to them are going to be very critical, and they're going to really hear certain things and not hear other things, So I think it's great. I think it's a really great way to really get that conversation started. So yeah.
My biggest thing is when you have a platform, you really have to think about the time and the place on when you speak on the issue. Where was Arquette last year? Where was her comments 2 years ago? Where was her comments 5 years ago? A lot of people are jumping on this, and I think all publicity is good publicity. Keep it open, and keep it in the forefront of a media that oftentimes is forgetful about the true issues. But I also look at, yeah, you're saying this now, but why weren't you saying this earlier? If this was really something that you truly believed and fought for, I wouldn't all of a sudden just now be hearing about you talking on the platform. Emma Watson has been consistent with her message for years, even though that she may not have been in front of the UN until recently. Yeah, we've known her stance for a while, but some other people we really haven't, and I think that can turn people off, and I can see that, maybe, yeah, I know the Oscars is a grand stage, but maybe that's not the first time the people should hear you speaking, because then it looks like a publicity thing for you, and it looks like, oh yeah, this is in the news and I'm going to be in front of people, so I want to make sure that they see me as supporting this, as opposed to maybe I'm talking about this before the Oscars and people already know my stance, so when I stand up there, it's not a surprise. Because I think there were people who were surprised by her comments. They're like, really? She has a voice on this? Why hasn't she had a voice on this before? So using your power and privilege, I think time and place is really important for effectiveness of a message.
And I think also going off on power and privilege, being a person in power and privilege, you don't need to be the voice, and I'm saying this in terms of you have to know when to step up and when to step back. And when I mean step up, that means using your platform, but in terms of stepping back, I think that really means realizing that, your voice does not represent all voices. And for a lot of people, if you are in a position of influence, that can be very harmful, because then they can take your opinion as the all-encompassing opinion of feminism, of what women think of men, that kind of thing. So really realizing, when to step up, when to step back, I think is really important, and why, Patricia Arquette's comments can be very, offensive to a lot of people, because, obviously that's not true. A lot of, women of color have very, very different experiences than white women, and that difference needs to be highlighted and needs to be recognized in order for feminism to really truly move forward and for that platform to be used, appropriately. So I think the last question is, so we're all talking to the male figures in our life, the dads, the uncles, the brothers, the boyfriends, the partners. What is one thing that we can do to really make this message of feminism not just a woman's issue, but like Brian said, really a human issue, something that we should all care about? And anyone in the audience, feel free to do Q&A. We'll be ending at in around 10 minutes, but feel free to submit your questions while we answer this as well.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Well, I mean, firstly, the education thing. I definitely think it's really, like I was saying before, it really starts, as a dad. I think from youth, you should teach your sons and your daughters how to respect everybody, and how to respect women, and how to treat them, and how to view them, and how to see them, and their daughters, as educate them how to be how to have those interactive relationships with guys, throughout school and in the workplace and as they get older, and for those sons, like Mr. Case was, or like Brian, Mr. Case, how you said that the way the dad treats their mom or the partner or whoever, how he treats the people in his lives, that's what the son's gonna see, and I think that's the primary level of how to educate men on feminism.
I think, there's an old idea out there. It was, the battle of the sexes. It's an us versus them, and that's what power situations want to do. They want to divide people, and it's not a battle of the sexes. It's a battle for human dignity, and I don't have all the answers to that, and it's going to be an evolution, and I hate to say it, that and we've started to see this with other issues about homosexual marriage and things like that. That as the old guard die, I know this is kind of a morbid idea, that as older generations pass off, since they are oftentimes the wielders of great power due to age and wisdom, as they start to disappear, you're starting to see more progressive ideas becoming mainstream, and we're seeing this now, and we can't just leave it to time. Oh yeah, we're gonna all the morons are gonna die off, and then we'll all be happy. No, not necessarily that, and it needs to be a combination of education, and it needs to be a combination of media, and it needs to be a combination of celebrities, and it really needs. I mean, the big question isn't about the individuals that perpetuate these stereotypes. The greater question is, what about society and its institutions that keeps this idea going? I mean, that's the big question that needs to be answered. What about this is perpetuating this idea, and how do we tackle it at that very core principle at the institutional level that maintains these these ideas about gender and sexuality and all these ideas that encompass acceptance of people as valuable. That's a huge question that I don't think is talked about. Yeah, we have this issue, we have that issue, but it's really about what are the institutions? Where are the people questioning the institution and bringing that, for instance, what about our schools? What about our family structure? What about our government that maintains these ideas, and how do we tackle it at that position? It's not just an individual and how he teaches his sons, or a mom how she teaches her sons. I mean, it's beyond that. It's core level, and while the individual can do their part, there still needs to be a greater discussion about why is it still here, and I don't think that's come out yet. I think that's on the horizon. That people are going to start talking about these. Where are these institutions in terms of race and gender and sexuality that maintain this status quo, that make our fight so uphill. And until we can find and pinpoint those institutions, it's going to be a harder battle. And I do hope that this comes out and people really start talking about, what keeps it this way. Is the way we teach? Is it the way we talk? Is it our government? Is it whatever it is? It has to be addressed at that level if we really want to see change and I can say it on a global level. I think that's going to be pretty important.
All right. Any final comments from our panelists, Kristen, or anyone? Thumbs up if you're good. If you're not, then feel free to unmute and go ahead. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for tuning into this webinar about why men should be feminists. We just want to remind everyone on this webinar that Women Speak is a fighting force for helping everyone, men and women, realize that equality is something that we're all fighting for. And we just wanted to give a quick update on our end. We have a huge flurry of events coming up for Women Speak. In 2 weeks, Kristen, me, and Anna will be going to the Clinton Conference in Miami and supporting Women Speak, presenting on what we've done this past year, and hopefully, Brian, you're going to Miami? Oh, okay. Anyway. Oh, and I. Okay, this is colloquialism. Anyway, sorry, we're having a side chat. Anyway, we're all going to the Clinton Conference to represent Women Speak and really say what we've been doing this past year in terms of the amazing things that we've been doing. We've been expanding our national chapter network from Boston to California. We have school chapters, which is amazing, and we are having a UCLA College Conference in April, and we are preparing a lot for our Girls Leadership Summit and further activities this summer based in Los Angeles. And we invite everyone on this webinar to email us, go to our website, womenspeakteam.org, to see what they can do in their community, in their school, during the summer if you're in Los Angeles, to be involved with us. We love, working with everyone. We're a really, really fun group, we swear. As you can see from our webinars, we have so much fun, and it almost seems like, work is play. So just a reminder that, for all of us, except for Brian, we're full-time students, but we do this on the side because we love it so much. We're so passionate about it, and we want others to be similarly passionate about it. So if our mission resonates with you, or if you feel like you really want to make a change in this space, we are here as a resource. But other than that, I don't know, Kristen, if you've had anything, but we are going to sign off for tonight. I have a midterm to study for.
We'd just like to thank everyone for tuning in, and we really appreciate the discussion. And definitely, like, if you guys have any questions, or tweet us, Facebook, email, anything, we'd love to keep the discussions going.
Yeah. So, signing off for tonight. Thanks for tuning in.